My wife secretly transferred $200, $0 of our savings to her ex after we finalized our divorce, then accused me of stealing and threatened litigation. Turns out she's been plotting to keep the house worth $850, $0 and cheat me out of everything. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. It all started with a gut feeling that something was off, but I never imagined I'd find out the truth in the most shocking way possible. I'd been married to Emily for nearly 10 years, and for most of that time, I thought we had a pretty normal, if sometimes rocky marriage. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that seemed insurmountable. We owned a house worth about $850, $0, and we'd managed to build a life together, or so I thought. But then, out of nowhere, everything started to unravel. It began with small things. Emily's behavior changed subtly but noticeably. She became more secretive about her phone, always keeping it close, even during dinner or when we were watching TV. She'd get defensive if I asked about her day or if I tried to look at her messages. At first, I brushed it off as her being stressed at work or just needing space, but deep down I felt something was wrong. I'd catch her lying about little things, where she was going, who she was talking to, and it was like she was trying to hide something big. Then one night, I found her phone open on the kitchen table. I didn't mean to snoop, but I saw a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a photo of her in bed with another man, and the message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." My stomach dropped. I stared at it for what felt like forever, trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't just a flirtation or a one-time thing. It was something serious. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I confronted her the next morning. When I showed her the message, Emily's face went pale, and her eyes darted around as if trying to come up with an excuse. She tried to deny it at first, saying it was just a work thing, that her ex Jake was just a friend she was helping out, that it meant nothing. But I knew better. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way she fidgeted, the way her voice cracked when she lied. The worst part was the way she spun her lies. She told me Jake was just someone she'd met at a networking event, that they'd only met a few times, and that she'd never cheated on me. Just emotional cheating, she said. She insisted she was going to end it, that she was just stressed and making a stupid mistake. But I wasn't buying it. I'd seen enough to know this was more than a slip-up. It was a full-blown betrayal. I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and confusion all at once. How could she do this? After everything we'd been through, after all the promises she made to me. And then there was the money. That's when my mind started racing faster. I remembered that Emily had recently been acting strange about our finances, asking about investments, checking the bank account more than usual. I always thought she was just being cautious, but now I wondered if she was planning something. Over the next few days, I started digging deeper. I noticed that she'd transferred $200, $0 of our savings to her ex, Jake, after we'd finalized our divorce. I couldn't believe my eyes. She used our joint account, and the transfer was made through an online banking app. I had no idea she was capable of this level of deception. I felt like I'd been hit again, only this time it was with a sledgehammer. The money was gone, and I knew she'd done it to keep Jake close, to keep him happy, maybe even to keep herself afloat financially now that we were splitting up. That's when I started to see the bigger picture. Emily wasn't just cheating on me emotionally or physically. She was plotting to keep the house, which was worth $850, $0, and cheat me out of everything. She'd been secretly planning her escape, using the money to buy Jake's loyalty, and now she was throwing accusations my way, claiming I'd stolen from her or that I was trying to ruin her. All because I had discovered her lies. And her affair. I couldn't believe how cold she was being. She's always been bitchy, demanding, and manipulative, but this was a new level. She lied so convincingly, spun her stories so well, I almost started to doubt myself. But I knew the truth, and I knew I had to figure out what to do next. My trust was shattered. My marriage was over. And now I had to think about how to fight back, how to protect what was mine, and how to deal with the woman who had betrayed me so thoroughly. After discovering everything, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind was spinning, trying to process the betrayal, the theft, the lies. I couldn't believe Emily had been planning this behind my back for so long. I kept going over the details in my head: the secret transfer of our savings, her affair with Jake, her manipulative lies. It felt like I'd been hit by a ton of bricks. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I was furious, hurt, and honestly, feeling pretty damn stupid for not seeing it sooner. I decided I needed to confront her again, face to face, get some answers. The next day I told her I wanted to talk. She was bitchy from the start, rolling her eyes like I was bothering her. When I brought up the money transfer, her attitude shifted from defensive to outright angry. She told me I was crazy, that I was trying to sabotage her, that I was just jealous because she'd moved on. She denied everything about the transfer, claiming she was just saving for a rainy day and that I was paranoid. Of course, she spun it like I was the villain trying to ruin her life. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I had the proof. I showed her the bank statement with the transfer. Her face flickered with panic for a moment, then she threw a fit. "You're accusing me of stealing, after everything I've done for this marriage. You're just mad because I don't want to be with you anymore. That's all this is." She looked me straight in the eyes and lied right to my face, claiming she'd never cheated, never transferred that money, never plotted to keep the house for herself. I knew she was lying, but hearing her say it made my blood boil. The emotional impact was brutal. I felt betrayed on every level. I'd dedicated years to this woman, built a life, trusted her implicitly. And here she was, sneaking around, lying, stealing, and trying to turn everything around on me. I felt like I was losing my mind. I was angry, yes, but also deeply hurt. How could she do this to me? How could she betray everything we had? The worst part was feeling so powerless. She was good at covering her tracks, and I had no idea where this was heading. I started questioning everything. Did I miss signs? Was I just blind? I kept replaying moments, her secretive phone habits, her late nights, her strange conversations. I wondered if she'd been cheating on me all along, not just Jake, but someone else too. I felt like a fool. I'd always thought we were solid, that I knew her, but now I saw that I'd been living in a lie. At the same time, I was furious about the money. That $200, $0 she transferred, she did it right after we finalized the divorce. She was planning to keep the house, to keep Jake, to keep everything for herself. It was clear she'd been plotting this for months, maybe longer. I couldn't believe she'd go so far just to cheat me out of what was rightfully mine. The house, the savings, she wanted it all, and she was willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate to get it. I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her keep the house or get away with stealing my money. I started consulting a lawyer, gathering all the evidence I could find. I also started to prepare emotionally. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. I was angry, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, but I wasn't going to let her destroy me or take everything I worked for. This was war, and I needed to fight smart. The more I learned, the more I understood that Emily was a master manipulator. She'd lied so convincingly, I had to be careful. I didn't trust her anymore, not one bit. I had to protect myself, my assets, and my dignity. I knew that I was going to have to fight her in court, maybe even go after her for the money she stole. I was determined to get justice, even if it meant tearing her lies apart piece by piece. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was overreacting, that I was just jealous of her new life with Jake, but I saw through her every word now. She was a bitch, a manipulative woman who'd do anything to keep what she wanted, and I was done playing nice. I was going to make her pay. Over the next few days, I threw myself into gathering evidence. I wasn't going to let her spin her lies anymore. I pulled every bank statement, every email, every text message I could find. I even hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, just to be sure. I needed to know what she was up to, how deep her plans went. It was a brutal process, but I had to do it. I couldn't trust her anymore, not after what I'd seen and what I knew she'd done. One night, I found out she'd been meeting with Jake again. I had a friend who worked as a bartender, and he told me Emily had been in the bar late at night, sitting in a Corner with Jake, whispering, laughing. I wasn't surprised. She had been sneaking around constantly. I also discovered that she'd been secretly talking to lawyers, planning to challenge the divorce settlement, trying to keep the house and the money. It was clear she was desperate to hold onto everything, no matter what it took. I sat down with my lawyer and laid out everything I'd uncovered. The transfer of funds, her affair, her plans to fight me over the house. My lawyer told me I had a strong case, especially since I had proof of the transfer and her infidelity. She'd been planning this for months, and I could use that to my advantage. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief that I was finally starting to see the full picture, and anger that she'd gone this far, betraying me and stealing from me behind my back. I decided I would file for full custody of the house and seek to freeze her assets until the divorce was settled. I couldn't let her get away with this. I also started to prepare emotionally for the confrontation ahead. I knew she was manipulative, that she'd try to spin her lies again, but I wasn't going to let her. I was done being the victim. It was time to fight back hard. Meanwhile, Emily kept pushing. She called me, texted me, even showed up at my office trying to talk her way out of it. She lied about everything, about Jake, about the money, about her plans. She said she was just trying to make a new life, that I was just jealous and trying to ruin her happiness. But I saw through her every word now. She was a bitch, plain and simple, and she was willing to do whatever it took to keep what she wanted. One day, she even accused me of stealing from her, claiming I'd been hiding money or lying about our finances. That made me so furious I almost lost it. I had the receipts, the proof, everything. I told her to stop the lies, that I was done playing her game. I was going to take her to court and I was going to win. She didn't like that, not one bit. She hissed at me that I'd regret it, that I was ruining everything. But honestly, I felt a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in years, I was taking control. I also started to realize how much her betrayal had affected me emotionally. I felt humiliated, angry, and deeply hurt. I'd trusted her with my life, and she'd been betraying me from day one. The worst part was knowing that she'd been lying to my face, pretending everything was fine while secretly planning her escape. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I knew I had to move on, whether that meant fighting for the house, fighting to get my money back, or just walking away from her altogether. Looking back, I see now how cunning she was. She played the victim so well, spun her lies like a pro. But I also see my own strength emerging. I refuse to be a victim anymore. I'll fight for what's mine, for my dignity, and for the truth. I've learned that some people are just manipulative and selfish, and you have to be ready to stand up against them. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know one thing. I'm done being naive. Emily's betrayal has changed me forever, but it's also made me realize my own resilience. The court date was set, and I knew I had to be prepared for the showdown. Emily was already trying to spin her web of lies, claiming I was the one who was cheating, stealing, and trying to ruin her life. She showed up in court with her bitchy attitude, acting innocent, acting like she was the victim. But I had the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, texts, and I was ready to lay it all out. When the hearing finally started, Emily's lawyer tried to argue that I was an untrustworthy spouse, that I'd been controlling and manipulative. She claimed I'd been emotionally abusive, that I'd been secretly hiding money, and that I'd stolen from her. I couldn't believe her audacity. I sat there calmly with all my evidence on hand. I knew I had the upper hand. The judge asked Emily about the transfer of funds. She tried to deny it at first, but I presented the bank records. Her face went pale. She stammered, then tried to say it was a mistake, that she'd transferred the money by accident. Yeah, right. I'd seen her lying to her lawyer earlier, trying to cover her tracks. I could see the cracks in her story. The judge looked at her skeptically, and I could tell she was losing her composure. Then I explained the affair, how I'd found the messages, the photos, the late-night meetings with Jake. I presented the proof, the timeline, the texts. Emily's eyes darted around, trying to come up with a defense, but she couldn't deny it anymore. The judge looked at her with a mix of disappointment and skepticism. I could tell she was starting to realize she'd overplayed her hand. The biggest point was the house. I argued that since I was the legal owner, and since Emily had transferred the money without my consent, She had no right to keep the house. I also pointed out that her plans to challenge the divorce were just her trying to cheat me out of my rightful share. The judge listened carefully, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I'd finally get some justice. Throughout the hearing, Emily kept trying to manipulate the situation, throwing accusations, crying, acting like she was the victim. But I stayed calm. I knew I had the truth, and I knew I had the law on my side. When the judge finally made the ruling, it was clear she was siding with me. She ordered Emily to return the $200, to cease all attempts to challenge the divorce settlement, and to stay away from the house until the final divorce decree was issued. As I left the courtroom, I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. The fight wasn't over yet, but I'd made a significant step forward. Emily's lies had been exposed, her manipulations thwarted. The house was safe, and I was finally beginning to reclaim what was mine. Still, I knew she wouldn't go down without a fight. She was the kind of person who'd burn everything down rather than admit defeat. But I was ready for whatever she threw at me next. That day, I realized just how much she'd been planning all along. The betrayal, the lies, the theft. It was all part of a bigger scheme to control, to cheat, to keep her claws in everything I had built. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind for so long. But now I saw clearly. I'd stand my ground, fight for my rights, and make sure she didn't get away with it. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that some people are just willing to lie, cheat, and steal everything to get what they want. And I wasn't going down without a fight. After the court's decision, I thought I'd finally get some peace. But Emily wasn't done. She immediately started trying to manipulate the situation, calling me every name in the book, accusing me of everything under the sun. She claimed I was trying to ruin her life, that I was jealous of her happiness with Jake. Of course, she still insisted she hadn't transferred the money, that everything was just a misunderstanding. But I had the evidence, and everyone who knew the truth saw her for what she really was, a liar and a manipulator. In the weeks that followed, she ramped up her efforts to twist things around. She showed up at the house unannounced, crying, begging, trying to guilt-trip me into backing down. She said she was sorry for everything, that she'd change, that she just wanted her happy ending. But I didn't buy it. I knew her game now. She'd been planning her escape for months, and she wasn't about to let go of her prize, my house, my money, my life. Meanwhile, I started to focus on rebuilding. I worked with my lawyer to freeze her accounts further, ensuring she couldn't move any more of my money. I also filed for full custody of the house, knowing she'd try to fight me again. I was determined to keep what was rightfully mine, even if it meant going back to court. I also reached out to a financial advisor to review everything, making sure she hadn't hidden any other assets or transferred more money. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been too trusting, too naive. Emily was a bitch, plain and simple, an expert manipulator who'd done everything she could to tear me down. But I also learned that I had strength I didn't know I possessed. I was finally taking control of my life again, fighting for what I deserved. One night, I confronted her directly. I told her I knew about her affair, about the money transfer, about her plotting to cheat me out of the house. I told her I was done playing her game. I told her I was going to fight for the house, for the money, for my dignity. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, trying to act innocent, trying to pretend she hadn't planned all along, but I saw through her. I knew her lies, and I wasn't going to let her win. She called me names, said I was just a jealous loser, that I'd ruin everything. But I didn't care anymore. I was over her manipulations. I was done being the victim. I realized that she'd been the one cheating, stealing, and lying from the start. And now I was going to make her pay for it. I'd fight her in court, I'd fight her in life, and I'd come out on top, because I knew the truth and I knew what she was capable of. In the end, I learned a lot about trust and betrayal. I learned that some people are manipulative, ruthless, and willing to do anything to get what they want. I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can stand up for myself, and that even when everything seems lost, you can find a way to fight back. This experience has changed me forever, but it's also made me more cautious, more determined, and more aware of the kind of people I want in my life, and the ones I definitely don't. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal has transformed me. I went from trusting blindly to seeing the cold, calculated manipulations Emily was capable of. I learned that some people are willing to lie, cheat, and steal everything, money, trust, even a marriage, just to get what they want. The betrayal cut deep, but it also forced me to grow stronger. I had to confront my own naivety and realize I couldn't rely on anyone blindly, not even someone I loved. Getting through the legal battles was exhausting but ultimately rewarding. The judge's decision to order Emily to return the stolen money and to cease her efforts to challenge the divorce settlement was a victory, even if it didn't erase the pain. It was a reminder that justice exists, even if it's slow and messy. I also learned that when someone shows you who they really are, you'd better believe them. Emily's bitchy, manipulative nature was laid bare, and I saw it clearly for what it was: greed, selfishness, and a total lack of remorse. The aftermath was a mix of relief and sadness. I moved out of the house, found a new place, and started to rebuild my life. I still feel the sting of betrayal, but I also feel a sense of liberation. I'm no longer blind to the warning signs. I know now that trust is earned and not given freely. I've become more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of my own strength. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. People lie, cheat, and manipulate, sometimes right in front of you, and you have to be prepared to fight back. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, even if it means losing someone you thought was your partner. Protect your assets, your dignity, and your peace of mind. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and self-respect are what truly matter. I've learned that revenge isn't always about revenge in the traditional sense. It's about reclaiming what's yours, about standing your ground and refusing to be a victim. Emily's betrayal was a wake-up call. It taught me to be more vigilant, more careful, and more resilient. And while I wouldn't wish this pain on anyone, I do believe it's made me a better, stronger person. I finally see clearly now, and I won't let anyone take that away from me again.